welcome once again to EWTN's Bookmark for a special media edition with a couple of great friends and compatriots of ours from Ireland, Aidan Gallagher and Campbell Miller, again from St. Brigid Media in Ireland, basically handle all of EWTN's work in that wonderful nation. Great to be with you, Aidan and Campbell.
Thank you.
Great. So, Aidan, your role is exactly what, and how is that in relation to EWTN?
Yes, my role is basically organising the promotion of EWTN and all of its very positive offerings across the nation of Ireland, which includes Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So essentially what we do is try and make sure that the Catholic faithful are aware that Sky broadcasts, the EWTN broadcasts on Sky 586, Virgin Media 815, and on Fire Stick and on various other mediums as well.
Right, and how long have you actually been involved working with EWTN?
Since 2010, and it's been a very exciting time because as well as making people aware of what's available on the channel, we try and promote a TV guide to the faithful through churches, and we try and introduce EWTN's products into schools and across various places like old people's homes, prisons, etc.
Why'd you decide to work with EWTN in Ireland?
Well, I remember we did charity work way back ever since about 1992 when I joined Youth 2000 and I joined another little prayer group in Belfast. And what our idea was, where could we strategically place ourselves to have the maximum powerful impact on souls? Now, I know that sounds quite a bit of a mouthful, but at that stage we were handing out leaflets on chastity, leaflets on pro-life, principles down the town, in the city centre of Belfast. But we figured here, there has to be a very, very more powerful way of doing this. So that's how we got into media, that's how I discovered EWTN, and that's how I suppose I discovered the exponential nature of when you do something hopefully good in a small scale, that aspect of magnifying it globally through EWTN afforded us a fantastic opportunity.
And that's great. We really appreciate your efforts over there running the show. And on the creative side, Campbell, your background, computers, then got into media, and how did you come to work for EWTN?
That's right. So, yeah, that's a story in itself. I was in Donegal. I was there actually helping someone with their computer system. And there was a producer there from EWTN, was shooting a series. And I always had an interest in media. I'd actually studied film in Indiana. And we created some short films at that time that did very well in Christian film festivals. So of course, when you're walking past a room and you see all of these cameras and lights up, that's really interesting. And I thought, well, I'll take a nosy in here, have a look, see what they're doing. And I found out they were from EWTN. And I had just heard of EWTN before that and had sent off an email to EWTN with some details of the content that I was creating to see if they were interested. So it was really providential to have met this person. And I showed them some of my content and what I do, and they were very interested. And then it got sent over here, and all of a sudden I work for EWTN.
Right, and we're pleased that you do. And of course, one of the reasons both of you are over here at this time is for Faith of Our Fathers,
That's
which
right.
is the latest film that you guys have put together for EWTN, working in concert with John Elson from our office here in the States. And Aidan, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you think a film like Faith of Our Fathers is important, not only for Ireland, but for the whole church?
Yeah. Well, Faith of Our Fathers, in essence, what the story is about is it's the struggles of a Catholic priest during the penal times in Ireland from roughly the late 1600s to the 1800s, the struggles of that priest to maintain the Catholic faith and to give the people access to the sacraments, that is Holy Mass, the Eucharist. And during that time, the Catholic faith was outlawed, and so was Catholic education in those historic times. The interesting thing about producing the film, and what we found out recently when we screened it at the Santa Croce conference in Rome, is that it has a remarkable correlation and relationship to many other countries out there today, because even a contemporary Google search today reveals that there are about 145 countries throughout the world that experience persecution because of their Catholic faith, their Christian faith. So the essence of the persecution in those historic days has a tremendous, I suppose, relevance to what people are experiencing today in those countries. But may I say as well, Doug, not just only that, it also pertains to the developed world, because there are many people, I suppose, whether if you hold strong pro-life principles, just values in relation to your faith, sometimes it's quite daunting if you do express those in a public media perspective. You often feel that you shouldn't put your head above the parapet, that it's not as a free society as one would imagine, where one could express their views.
Absolutely.
So there's still that element of feeling, I suppose, not threatened, but not as just as free to express or practice your faith and express it as positively as one would wish.
Absolutely. And Mother used to talk about us dealing with being white martyrs, maybe not bloodied martyrs, but white martyrs in the sense of the cultural oppression which we're seeing here. And Campbell, also, obviously, we've heard about the situation in Ireland, which has changed a lot over the years as well. You had the idea to do this, and you're the one who produced it. Where did the idea come from, and why did it capture your heart?
I suppose looking at the persecution that's taking place throughout the world at the moment, and this very subdued persecution that the church is actually under in modern day, even as Aidan has mentioned, in the developed world, I felt that a story needed to be told, and clearly we haven't learned from our past. And that story of what happened within Ireland and also in Britain during the penal period needed to be told. A lot of Irish Catholics don't realise what happened and what their ancestors actually went through. And it's, this great name of Faith of Our Fathers, that's what it's talking about. The faith that our fathers had back then, and what they, not just the priests and the bishops, but also the Catholic faithful had to go through just to give us that freedom of faith today.
To endure and to understand the sacrifices they made, especially when we're complaining the air conditioning's not working right, or the Wi-Fi signal's not very good here right now, right? So in dealing with that as well, and finding actors and people to work to be able to do something on a high caliber as this film obviously is, how do you go about that?
So we do have a process of pre-production. There's a lot of work goes in there. I'm very lucky with the help that I get along with the acquisitions department, John Elson and Casey and Sean and Rebecca there. They really give me good input into the script and the story that we want to actually tell. But also then back in Ireland, I have been very lucky to work with a number of great people that are heads of all of our departments in makeup, hair, costume, our project manager, Nassim Morgan, and Jim Crone, of course, our director of photography. And because I've worked with those people over a number of films, they make my life a little bit easier in putting together something like this, because especially this was not just mine, but a few of those people's biggest production that we've ever done. We had over 100 cast and crew, so it really takes that experience there to be able to bring this to the screen.
Right, and Aidan, when you showed this in Rome, is this the one that the Pope kind of endorsed, or which film was it that the Pope actually kind of endorsed?
Yes, well, we've been very thankful to God that he's endorsed essentially all three of our films, in the sense that Father Willie Doyle, that we produced way back in 2018, it was shown in the Filmoteca in Rome, in the Vatican, and as we probably know, that's the Pope's own cinema. So to have a permission and approval to show it there was a tremendous step forward.
And what was that? What was the storyline behind that film that you guys made, that Campbell made?
Yeah, well, Father Willie Doyle is essentially about a Jesuit priest who was a chaplain in the British Army, who was basically a hero, where he went and ministered to all the men under his command as such, as a chaplain, and whether you were Catholic, Protestant, or no faith at all, he spent his life. In fact, he offered up his life for the people that were under his care. And I know that Father Willie Doyle, the whole project that Campbell, that was the first project, Campbell, that you came to us with, So it's one that's very dear to your heart.
It was, and that all came from listening to an Ewtn radio interview in which Pat Kenny, who is bringing Father Doyle's cause forward, he was being interviewed and he was talking about Father Doyle and what this man had done. And I remember just before that watching a movie called Hacksaw Ridge about you know, this man going out into no man's land and bringing the men back. And after hearing Pat Kenny talking about Father Doyle, and that is exactly what he did. He would go out into no man's land with bullets, bombs going around him, and take these men back. And if he couldn't get them back, if they were dead, he would lie there beside them until it finished, and then brought them back. And this didn't matter whether they were Catholic men or Protestant men. And he was admired by both sides, and that's how he lost his life, actually going over to get 2 Ulster Protestant men.
Right. It's interesting too with that, with the idea that he wasn't just there for their physical needs, he was there for their spiritual needs, and that's the part that I think younger people find quizzical, right?
Yeah, that's it. He was, and he was there all the time with his men. He was a captain. He didn't have to be in the front lines. He lived with them men on the front lines, in the trenches, and went through everything that they wanted to go through. And what I really like about him is he was a real man's man. And I thought, there is someone that's a great example of what, you know, what we want our priests to be like today. Is this person that we can look up to, and is, you know, they're on the front line. They're battling with us.
Right, and I remember seeing some of the war scenes you had created, John Elson showed, and we said, this man has talent, we need to exploit it. So that was one of the reasons I think we started off, and obviously this had a positive impact in Ireland itself, and then you started to expand what you guys were doing programming-wise, right, Aidan?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the Father Willie Doyle production was it generated such a, I suppose, a huge interest in that level of filming, and again the fact that you know, we did it to such a standard that it was shown in the Pope's own cinema, that it naturally did then get headlines, not just in Ireland but across the world, and that gave us a terrific springboard, especially through the good guidance of you, Doug, and your team, John Nelson, here at Ewtn Central or Birmingham, where we came up with the second idea of Knock, the film on Knock. And to our minds, the story of Knock has never really been properly told, because it around about the mid-1840s, the famine began in Ireland, but it wasn't until 1879 that Our Lady appeared at Knock. So she was appearing for a particular purpose. Ireland had just been devastated through famine, through immigration, and through sickness. And we felt, and Campbell told the story terrifically well, by basing it on the actual witness statements.
Absolutely.
Rather than giving it some sort of a spin of what you think people want to hear, no, we based it on what the witnesses actually said they saw and what they testified until their dying day.
Right, what I thought was great with that, and I'd like Campbell, you to comment on the production itself, was part of the idea we had when we did it in Lourdes recently, we did it in Fatima. We wanted to say, just like we did Saint Speaks By, we wanted what they said, not what people said they said, but people to see what actually happened, what Our Lady said in all various apparitions. In this one, obviously she was silent, but it was important for people to understand the importance of this to the Irish people, right?
That's it, and that movie starts off with taking us through what happened in the famine period. So we have historians that talk about that time, and the reason we did that was because when Our Lady, St. Joseph, St. John, and the Lamb of God all appeared to those, we have 15 official witnesses, but there was much more there. When they appeared at a time when there was a second famine, and that's what people actually don't realise.
I see.
So. I wanted to show people what the Irish people had went through before that. So there was people still living at that moment. They knew what their ancestors went through, the amount of people that died, the amount of people that had lived, and then there was this fear, this was all going to happen again. So they came, and Our Lady came to basically give comfort. And when you want to give someone comfort, there is nothing you can say.
Right, interesting.
That's why there was silence, there was quietness. She just wanted to be with the Irish people at that moment.
And say, basically, I'm here, I'm your mother, don't worry. Right?
Exactly, that was it.
Right. Now you moved on to a little different topic there, on a program which was called Speak of the Devil. Where did that one come from? Not from Our Lady of Knock, I don't think.
No, definitely not. So that name actually, of course, was you had brought that one to me. It was a great name to entitle the movie that was going to be about spiritual warfare. And this was something very different that I had never done before, and that was trying to educate people about a topic, but also doing it through a story. And I felt that the best story to do that was the prodigal son story, and retelling that in a very different way. So we retold it in the medieval period. There's no set time, but it's in the medieval period. There's sword fighting, and people have that look of what you would see in TV from the Vikings TV series, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
So we wanted to give them what they're seeing currently, and that means that they're used to seeing that, and hopefully it would entice new viewers into watching this content and learning something new.
And did you see that impact, the fact that you had this Game of Thrones? In fact, they shoot in Northern Ireland, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you actually had actors and people who were associated with those productions. I mean, that was part of the allure, the idea of something that would look like something a lot of young people were watching or binge watching on Netflix or whatever channel it was on that week. Did you find that had an extra appeal?
Well, yes, certainly in terms of its popularity. The fact that people were already open to that almost like Viking concept, or the medieval concept. But I think it's just the manner in which that we did it. You know, obviously we were correlating the parable of the prodigal son to that era. And from a personal perspective, whilst I think, and answering your question directly, whilst the medieval nature of it was very powerful, I do think it was the inherently powerful Christian story, family story that is contained within the prodigal son that really helped the success of it.
Right.
So, you know, clothing it in the medieval period and clothing in the Viking sort of garb and the makeup, etc., worked terrifically well. But I think at the deep root of every person, you know, is this wonderful appreciation for the prodigal son story that has been so popular throughout the ages.
Well, I think what's great about it, and I think a lot of people have said this, if you can do something on a high-end production-wise, and you have something that looks like something people are comfortable with, I think, well, I've seen things like this, it's a little easier to get them to enjoy the story, and then to have those underlying Christian aspect, Catholic teachings there, without telling people, welcome to this Catholic show, here's a priest, he's standing in front of a blackboard, and he's going to explain the catechism to you, which is a good program. And some people need that at different times, but it doesn't reach everybody everywhere all the time, right?
No, that's it. And we're very blessed that the crew that we have working in these productions have worked in all of those major productions that we've talked about, the likes of Game of Thrones and Vikings and that. So they were able to bring their experience to our production and help us give it that look, so that, as you said, that we can, and as Aidan has mentioned, we can get that story across seamlessly to someone that mightn't realize that that's actually what they're watching, that until the end.
Right, and absolutely, and my sense was, in a discussion we had yesterday or the other day, we were talking quickly, and you were saying how much they enjoy, those people like to work on these productions, because there is a different sense to it than the secular productions they normally work on, right?
That's right. We have a great crew. We really do, and we keep our crew for every single production, so we're now used to working together. And the feedback that we're always getting is, well, Campbell, when are you doing the next one? You know, we want to be part of it. And some of these people are taking sacrifices and wanting to work with which is less of an income, even getting a smaller contract in time period where they could be working for 3 months, and for us it's only a month.
Right.
So we're lucky that we have that. But the other opportunity it gives us with making a production of this, like Faith of Our Fathers, with 100 different people, we're getting to evangelize to those 100 people that are actually working with us in our production. So there's 100 people that we know already have been touched by that movie.
Right. And big productions are big productions, but there's other productions as well. Like there's one on the Sacred Heart, there's one on Divine Mercy. Why don't you talk a little bit, Aidan, about some of the other projects and productions you're working on that to kind of fill out Ireland's schedule?
Yeah, delighted to. Yeah, so 2 projects that we've got over the line in this past number of months are Enthronement to the Sacred Heart. And that was working with a terrific priest we have in Ireland, Father Bernardino Supuk, and he is based out of Limerick. He's part of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal in Limerick, or the Monks of Myros, as people very friendlyly refer to them as. So he helped us do this enthronement. And what is enthronement? So enthronement is basically enticing people into consecrating themselves, their family, and their home to the Sacred Heart. Right. And in a real man's man type of way, handing over control of your affairs, handing over control of your life, your family, your children, your finances to our Lord. Right. Because ultimately He is our Creator, knows best. Right. And we've got that over the line in a very simplistic way. It's about maybe a 25-minute program, and it's a very simple step-by-step process.
Right.
So that's very good that we've done that. The second one is basically on the Divine Mercy, like you just said. And it was working with a West Belfast group, a terrific gentleman called Stephen McCluskey, where way back, probably about 10, 15 years ago now, he set up a Divine Mercy prayer group with the help of his friends and the powerful local community there. But really the substance of that, Doug, is so tremendous, and it's portrayed very well in that program, because the essence of Divine Mercy is, our Lord says, come to me in the Divine Mercy, and there are so many graces that I can give you through your humility and through your beseeching the Divine Mercy. And Stephen McCluskey and his prayer group have done that so well in West Belfast. So if your viewers can keep an eye out for that, it's called Trust. It's a terrific program, and I understand it'll be in due course.
Right, and of course, the great marriage between the Sacred Heart and the Divine Mercy, really, and how those really go hand in glove. Now, speaking of big productions and big ideas, let's talk a little bit about a program that you're considering working on. We've had some conversations having to do with the life of St. Patrick, maybe the unknown years, could call it, or something along those lines. Why don't you explain?
Yeah, so that was something that came up by accident, and looking at new ideas and what we could do our next program on. St. Patrick has been mentioned to me a number of times over this last few years, and I always no, it's been done. Everybody knows the story. And after a couple of different meetings and looking into St. Patrick's story and his, as you said, the early years, that's when I discovered there is a lot about this man that we actually don't know. So this new series, if we get to do it, will be from the moment that he gets captured to actually getting back home. And it is just full of, there's so many issues that he has had to go through and deal. There's his own conversion, being sold for slavery twice, gone through that, and then the arduous journey of when he escaped and actually getting back home. So that's a story that we believe people would really enjoy, getting to know the real St. Patrick, and we want to take away all of that myth and legend that people have heard about him and actually see the truth in this man.
Right, because ultimately the real stuff is actually better than the myth, right?
That's exactly it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much there. You don't need to be filling in gaps. We don't need to be making something up about him that is completely untrue when...
and that somebody can easily say, come on.
That's it. That's it. And we want to create a TV series or film that you won't have anyone writing in and telling us, well, that's not true or that didn't happen, and that we want the full truth story of what he actually went through to become the patron saint of Ireland.
Right, and we invite all of our viewers to pray for that particular production, that guide us and guide Campbell and Ewtn in where that should go and how we can work that out. Ewtn, you got 30 seconds to tell the world about St. Brigid.
Well, and again, thank you, Doug, for this opportunity of just being able to do the show with you. So for the folks listening from Ireland and across the world, St. Brigid Media is an affiliate of Ewtn whose exclusive focus is to take the wonderful programs that Ewtn and ourselves make on the Catholic faith and make sure as many people as possible get an opportunity to watch it through television, to hear it through radio, and read about the powerful witness on social media.
Well, we couldn't be any prouder to have you as our compatriots on this walk and this mission. Campbell Miller and Ewtn Gallagher, of course, from St. Brigid Media in Ireland. Look for Faith of Our Fathers coming soon on EWTN and all the great programming that we're producing on our on-demand page. You can check that out as well. I'm Doug Keck. This has been a special EWTN media program on Bookmark. We'll see you next time. Thanks.